for me, the best trade that was made in Morey's tenure was one of the first couple of moves he made. And that was trading for Seth Curry, the Josh Richardson for Seth Curry swap. Because Josh Richardson wasn't necessarily bad in Philadelphia. In fact, he was called upon quite a bit to be lead ball handler and pseudo point guard because of Ben Simmons' limitations, because of how goofy that roster was constructed. And I know the Horford outgoing piece was really important and for various reasons. But moving Richardson and getting Curry back, a guy who immediately found that synergy with Joel Embiid, a guy who in that embarrassing loss to the Hawks, I know that he had a ton of struggles covering Kevin Huerter, and the defense was what it was.
He was getting destroyed.
But he was basically the second option.
Yes, he was.
That entire playoff series. Yeah. And allowed you to get away with Ben Simmons absolutely crumbling mentally. I think it's forgotten now in that game 5 where they had the huge collapse. Seth had a monster game. Like him and Joel. I don't remember if Seth had 30.
I wanted to say like 27.
I think like 27, 28, somewhere in that range. Joel, I think, had like 32, 33. And they were the 1-2 punch for the team. And that gave us the early kind of preview of what they were going to now get from Tyrese Maxey as he has blossomed, right? Like Seth certainly didn't have the downhill speed and all the stuff that Tyrese has to his game as a downhill player, but he had the mid-range jumper, the dribble handoff, two-man game, which Joel Embiid was strong.
Yep.
And now he's built on that with a better player in Maxey, but that was, you traded a guy who did not fit here and has gone on to do not much of anything for a guy who was a number 2 option in a second round series, and a good one at that. So that to me was the best move. And look, people were very upset when he ended up being part of that trade for James Harden, which I think is another move. That one's more controversial. I do think that's one that you at least have to discuss.
Absolutely.
The value proposition there and what they got out of it. But yeah, to me, the Seth trade was the best one that they made.
And the Seth thing is so good, as you start off with that one, because not only did this Seth thing lead to now what we saw with the Buddy Hield trade, whether it worked or not, the idea was stemming from and branching from J.J. Redick, following J.J. Redick because he was so good, to getting and identifying a player like Seth Curry in that trade. And then when you do lose Seth Curry, which they did not want to do, but they had to, you try to duplicate that once again, even though Maxey is, again, playing at this high level in a more of that traditional sense of what Buddy Hield, Seth Curry, J.J. Redick are. And that's where that goes. We
actually underestimated Seth in Game 5, by the way.
I said 27, 28. What was it? You said 30 first.
He scored 36 points in that game. He was 13 for 19, 7 to 12 from 3. Joel had 37 in 39 minutes on 20 shots.
How they blew 2 20-point leads in that series.
Here are the scores for the rest of the team. Ben Simmons, 8 points. Tobias Harris, 4 points. Furkan Korkmaz, 8 points. So Furkan Korkmaz had as many points in that game as Ben Simmons and 4 more than Tobias Harris.
In less minutes, I'm sure.
Thibault 6, Shake 5, George Hill 2, and that's it.
No Maxey in the game.
No. Well, Maxey played a minute 20, so.
Crimes, Doc Rivers, crimes.
I'm sorry for the PTSD that I'm causing people today, but I had to go back and, because I was like, I want to know how many points he scored exactly.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah. And but see, that's the thing about Seth Curry, too. He was so good offensively, so good. When you get to a Game 7, what does the head coach do? And Nate McMillan, we're going to target this guy on the other end no matter how many points he puts on the board, because defensively he is so weak. Now, none of us expected Kevin Huerter to go off for his 27 in that game. I think that was right. You had the score for the series. But in that Game 7, Kevin Huerter was making everything. Now, you had an out-of-body experience in that game. It wasn't all on Seth Curry because, look, we know Seth Curry is not a defender. It was what it was, so you had to take him off the floor. But his shooting ability, playing off of Joel Embiid so well, and then if Maxey was to eventually ever develop into this player, Curry may not have been in the starting lineup because you see what he is now. He probably relegated to the bench, if not here anymore. but he was a really good player. So to do that, to get rid of Josh Richardson, which was not going to work with what they now wanted to do with Doc Rivers, that was a fantastic trade by Daryl Morey.
We all silly like the mayor.